As I thought about it, I realized all of us manage something at some time. We're going to turn to one of Jesus' stories that is, in fact, about a manager, a shrewd manager. It's, as I said, it's one of my favorite stories, partly because it's funny. It's a little bit like Ocean's 11, if you remember the George Clooney heist film where you have a lovable rogue as the central character, and I don't know what you necessarily learn from that film, but it's a fun ride anyway. And I think if we appreciate that Jesus doesn't mind telling funny stories to make a point, stories that feature a protagonist who is not squeaky clean, far from it in this case, that it'll go down a little easier. In any case, we'll read it and I'll explain what I think's going on, see if there are any questions, and then we'll call our panelists up. The first thing we need to recognize is that this word wasting, which could be even better, well, not better translated, more fun translation, squandered. Squandered is a fun word, and you may recall that that same squandering or wasting characterizes another story in Luke. In fact, it's a story right before this one about the prodigal son. Remember, he squanders his father's possessions. Same word in Greek, and it's a rare word. And as it turns out, Luke does this sort of thing a lot, is he'll connect two stories by the use of one unusual word in each. Certainly, the manager should not do what he does. It may be illegal depending on, who's looking at the law, etc. But it's certainly not in the best interests of the master, which is what the steward's supposed to take care of. He's supposed to manage on behalf of the other person. And so he puts his plan into action, and it's just brilliant. But this guy is just shrewd as can be. He says, okay, you owe 900. Boy, that's a, whew, is it that much? I'll tell you what. We're having a pretty good year here. We love your business. I'm very much a client-focused kind of a manager here. I'm willing to cut that down in half. Really? Why is that? Do you think, is your boss okay with that? Oh yeah, it's going to be fine. Right? He's a shrewd manager. And if he has any conscience, maybe he massages a little bit. I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be fine. Frankly, he hasn't been out here in literally 2 years. So, this is, I think, an arrangement that can work for both of us. Well, great. This is the best day of my life. He's walking out there so that 3 months later, the guy shows up in his door, says, just wanted to let you know, I felt my prior position was really restricting me in a lot of ways. I wasn't fully growing in, and I would love to see what I can do with your place. Oh, does your boss know about this? Oh yeah, he's fine. He said there's a growth opportunity for you. I'd love to. So what do you think? Oh yeah, great. Come on in. Welcome. Right. And so his plan succeeds. And where the comedy is the master, who may end up, throwing the guy in prison or whatever, who knows, but the first reaction is, dog, oh man, I knew it when I hired you. You had that little glint in your eye. That was pretty sharp business there. And so he commends him because he acted shrewdly, and that is a perfect English word to use, right? Because there's a wisdom to it, but that's not wisely in the sense of an exalted, noble, good undertaking. It's just shrewd. It's just a really clever sort of a thing to pull off. And that's why, again, I bring us back to something like Ocean's 11. And so Jesus says he's a dishonest manager, but he goes on to say that we are, like the guy, to make friends for ourselves by means of, and he uses the same word here, unrighteous. So it says dishonest here, but it's really the same word. Jesus says, in effect, what you need to do is be just like that shrewd manager, that you are in need of an eternal home, because this home is going to collapse around you in short order, right? Whether the whole world goes down or you as an individual goes down, you need an eternal home, and you need a welcome there. And how are you going to do that? Jesus says, by means of unrighteous mammon. Jesus is, again, in somewhat comical fashion saying, yeah, you need to take the money you have, just as the manager took the financial situation at his disposal and used it to his advantage, so you need to take the money you have and use it to your eternal advantage. Except when you look at the whole Gospel of Luke, what that means is open-handed generosity, particularly to the most vulnerable, right? And just that's all throughout Luke, is putting yourself at the disposability of others. And that's why he goes on to summarize, I tell you, use the mammon of unrighteousness, unrighteous wealth, to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. And then he does make the point, too, that just as the steward was supposed to be responsible with somebody else's money, so God has bequeathed to you gifts, abilities, talent, treasure, etc., and you are responsible to him for how you deploy that. And in that sense, you better do a far better job than the unrighteous steward. This is a story, because it's about a manager, it just fits this topic so well. No one's participation in today's panel implies that they would, do anything remotely like this. Thinking of particularly either a good manager you've had and what made him or her good at their job, or just a well-managed situation you've been in, and what sort of benefits flowed from that, and what characterized a well-managed office.
Patricia Jameson. I started out in higher education management. My little sister actually grew up, and she's done very well for herself. She was actually the first out-of-family recruit from Johnson & Johnson, and she's the worldwide chairwoman and CEO for Johnson & Johnson. But she's brought in to troubleshoot and for her management skills. That she goes in, especially when she's new to a company, but every week for 2, 3, 4 days of that week, she goes in at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and just grabs a cup of coffee and goes and hangs out at the loading docks or the manufacturing floor or the janitor staff or something. And she's just determined that every single person that is connected with that company has something to offer. And I think therefore gains mutual, respect back and forth. But she also knows that at that, she's really learning everything she can possibly learn about what's going on in that company.
There are a couple of principles you've learned over the years. Certainly that could be a benefit to people in positions comparable to your own, but that might also, as we've already, I think, hinted at, have effects for managing a home or a small group in school or whatever it is. What kind of things stand out to you as the things that characterize good management?
I'm Paul Hendrickson. I've been in a variety of management roles. Ran a management consulting company in the financial services sector for about 25 years. I think from my time as a consultant, one of the things I learned was listening is really important. Often as consultant, I would get tossed into a situation where I had no idea of what the business was, and I had basically 2 weeks and I was supposed to give direction, and it was supposed to be right. And the only way is to listen and respect the people who are there and who know the business. And the other thing that I would say that I found from a management standpoint is recognizing that different people require different styles of management. I have some people who are going to be doing the same thing for years and years, and others who their big thing is being motivated to do brand new things. And understanding the person and fitting the management style to the person you're working with is really key.
One of the quotes about management that I've always found humbling is that people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. It's a heavy burden, it's a heavy weight to bear to be a manager. I would hope it's not too personal, but wondering if there's any places where you've felt inadequate or the heaviness of being a manager.
I was fairly young, and I had been at a kind of a medium executive level in a large administrative office in a university, and I got hired to be the head of the department at a smaller, very prestigious college. And I was handed this, multi-million-dollar budget. I had never really managed money like that. I had never managed my own staff. It was very, very daunting, and I guess you know, the response there was that I had a mentor in my previous job that I admired greatly. And so he was a great resource for any questions I had. I hired a new staff person, wow, and, you know, ended up having a great relationship with this person. And we became a team that took on this very daunting task.